Greetings humies! Here in this video we will discuss the 9 different dreadnought patterns of the Imperium, not the Castraferrum variants, which are the mainstay of the dreadnought numbers. Here we will discuss the different dreadnought patterns or classes. For variants of the Castraferrum, we will certainly make another video. Remember that before you complain like a witless worm.
Oh, but you didn't include the Furibundus.
Before we do the list though, we will be talking a little bit on what the dreadnoughts are, their origins, history and how they work, just to get the new and upcoming 40k enthusiasts on board. So let's get to it. The origins and history. So these deadly mechas, or rather more specifically the cybernetic combat walkers, trace back their origins to even before the Space Marines, thousands of years before the first Astartes or even the Primarchs were created. Born out of the grim dark age of technology, these walkers were once used to house either injured or near-dead human soldiers during the 25th millennium, and they would serve a pivotal role in defeating the Men of Iron during the cybernetic revolt that brought down the golden age of humanity. They would later serve as deadly weapons for the Mechanicum on Mars, as well as for numerous technocratic factions that make up the Earth during the Age of Strife. They would then later be integrated with the Astartes during the Unification Wars and the Great Crusade under the Emperor, and from then on out, they would be married at the hip with the Space Marine legions and chapters and will never be seen without them. So how do these dreadnoughts work? First of all, they are not robots or androids, and they cannot work autonomously without human control. At first glance, they look like clumsy steampunk robots, but rather than that, they are more technically and accurately just life support systems that allow the human or Astartes that is in critical condition like a corpse to still fight, and not just that, but bring forth the Emperor's wrath and heavy firepower support to their fellow Space Marines, as well as other human fighters like the Imperial Guard. So whenever a notable or elite and veteran Space Marine is critically injured, he is not left to die, as he is too valuable to the Imperium. His fighting capabilities are more than just necessary for the survival of mankind. Therefore, his body is placed inside an armored cyber-organic sarcophagus, kind of like a coffin with a life support, and the sarcophagus is then integrated within a dreadnought, that walker, which becomes their new body. The pilot's consciousness is then linked to the dreadnought system through cyber-organic neural links and sensors to experience the outside world. They are revered and cared for by the tech marines, and their ancient occupants are often sought out as advisors due to their old age and wisdom. So the first pattern, the Lucifer pattern. So yeah, definitely not much lower on this one, not even sure if it's canon or not, but from what is available, it is said to be one of the earliest types of dreadnoughts that were used by the emerging empire during the Great Crusade and Unification Wars, and were abandoned when the subsequent Contemptor patterns were made available. They carried power mauls and volkite devices, as their primitive reactors prevented the use of other energy weapons. However, it was still a beast and could be assigned to a drop pod, making them a cupcake surprise for enemies, especially against the infantry. Number 2, the Proto Dreadnoughts. So these make up a wide range of different types of patterns of dreadnoughts, and even these have just a pinch of lore to back them up, their existence. But we can clearly state that they are canon to the 40k lore. These would be the ones that were pioneered in the dark age of technology, while their designs and STCs are lost to time. The earliest ones, however, are dated to the end of the Age of Strife and are steam-powered and piloted by unenhanced humans. During the Unification Wars, the clans of Albia used them against the Emperor's forces before eventually joining the fray, the Alliance. Interestingly, the Iron Hands originated from these same clans, which were known for their tough warriors with proto-dreadnoughts. One such proto-dreadnought is the Urgolem pattern that were later used by the Thunder Warriors and the Custodian Guards. Number 3, the Furibundus pattern. So these are one of the earliest ones that were fielded by the Imperium during the Unification Wars, as well as during the Great Crusade. They were effectively one of the first ones used exclusively by the Legionist Astartes, and not by other humans like Proto and Lucifer patterns. The Furibundus looks more like an automata rather than a dreadnought, just to be honest, and they are lightly armed walkers, relatively lightly armed compared to the others. They had a rounded upper body with no sloping plate ceramic armor, and they also had longer legs which might have given them faster speeds on the battlefield. They also had longer arms which were modular and can be fitted with various types of weapons, but these types were replaced eventually by the Contemptors and the Castraferrums. Number 4. The Deredeo pattern. These are funny looking dreadnoughts which resemble walkers that have no hands, but are outfitted with long barreled guns in their place. The Deredeo pattern dreadnought was a heavy support frame used during the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy. It was initially produced in limited numbers due to manufacturing difficulties, but its durability and firepower made it highly sought after during the Horus Heresy. The twin-link anvilus or the cannon battery was one of its primary weapons, capable of destroying armed targets from out of the blue, as during the battles of the Heresy, tanks and other contemptors were taken out before they could get in range and retaliate. The Deredeo's carapace could also mount extra weapons and support systems, such as heavy bolters, flamers, and the advanced eyeless missile launchers, which had independent targeting systems. Number 5. The Leviathan pattern. This is a heavier class of dreaded combat walkers. The Leviathan Siege Dreadnought is a parallel development of the Contemptor design, featuring heavier weaponry and highly durable and impressive armor. They were created during the Great Crusade in secret, in terror, without the help of the Mechanicum from Mars. These powerful machines are highly valued by the Astartes commanders, serving as fierce siege and hunter-killer units. Their oversized reactors are capable of powering awesome weaponry that obliterate everything. Unlike their counterparts, the pilots of the Leviathans rarely survive their deployment or are driven mad by prolonged activation. For this reason, the Leviathans are a rare relic vehicle, typically kept in a chapter's secure storage, and only authorized by the chapter master for use in the most dire of circumstances. Number 6. The Telemon pattern. The Golden Security Guards also have their own type of dreadnought, and since a Custodes is bigger than a Space Marine, theirs is also of a relatively bigger build as compared to the other Astartes dreadnoughts. The Telemons are crafted in a unique way, and its armored plates are of oromite armor rather than ceramite material. The Custodes possess only a small number of these dreadnoughts. The scarcity of these machines were partly due to the immense amount of labor and resources required to create them, as each one contained at least one plate personally crafted by the Emperor himself. These dreadnoughts are armed with an Arachnus storm cannon on one hand and a Telemon Castius, which is a power fist with a plasma projector, on the other, and also with a chassis-mounted bolt launcher. Even if there are just a few of them, a handful of them, most of these are empty, as the Custodes are epically hard to be mortally wounded or critically injured, and so these sarcophagi life support units are mostly unused. Number 7. The Redemptor pattern. These are the new Primaris Dreadnought, which along with the Brutalis were a part of the Indomitus Crusade of Rubuti Guilliman, although bigger and more powerful, which kinda sucks as they all just brush aside the firstborn Space Marines and Dreadnoughts like massive Mary Sues. Rumors suggest that the advanced systems of the Redemptors are both a blessing and a curse. The tech savants who built these engines didn't consider the well-being of the pilot, treating them as garbage or interchangeable parts. It's been reported that many Redemptors have caused their pilots to burn out due to the prolonged use of the machine's destructive power, which is kind of like the same problem with the firstborns crossing the Rubicon Primaris upgrade. Their minds are disturbed due to being updated for proper integration of the 3 added gene seeds. Kinda sounds like a made in China situation. Anyway, these battle giants, the Redemptors, are built taller, broader, and more intricately crafted than older dreadnoughts. They are also fueled by hyper-dense plasma reactors and possess advanced fiber bundles for control. What kind of control? More advanced control, cause they are Primaris. Number 8. The Castraferrum pattern. These are the mainstay of the Dreadnought numbers, and most of the types that you have in your rooms are either variants of these or further developments that stem from them. The Ironclad, the Furioso, the Mortis, the Hellfire, Assault, Deathwatch, Space Wolves, and Doomglaives, just to name a few, are different variants fielded by different Space Marine chapters. The Castraferrum Dreadnoughts were developed by Mars and were one of the first ones to be exclusively used by the Space Marines, which means that they can only be integrated with a mortally wounded Astartes. It is shorter than the others, shorter than their Contemptor, the Leviathan or Telemon patterns, but what it lacks in height and heavier firepower, it makes up for with mobility, stability of usage, and being highly modular, as they can be easily outfitted with a wide range of weapons including assault cannons, multi-melters, twin-ling las cannons, twin-ling autocannons, twin-ling heavy bolters, twin-ling heavy flamers, missile launchers, or also a plasma cannon. They are the dreadnoughts you think of when you hear the name out loud. And number 9, the Contemptor pattern. And finally we have the last unique pattern of dreadnought on this list. The Contemptor predates the Imperium and is one of the early types of dreadnoughts used during the Unification Wars. There are variants of this as well, but it has a unique shape that more resembles the Astartes power armor than the other dreadnought patterns. They are larger and more powerful and possess traits of the Legio Cyberneticus automata. Their power core is very powerful but relatively unstable, as it will explode like a mini nuclear bomb if damaged enough. It has a simulated head that possesses a vast array of sensors to make the corpse Astartes inside of it feel like a wholesome individual. These dreadnoughts can be fitted with all sorts of weapons, but since they are mostly close fire support units, they would either have a twin-ling heavy bolter or a flamer on one hand and a power claw or the talons of predation on the other. They are used en masse by the Blood Angels in many battles and were pivotal in the defense of their homeworld against the Tyranids during the devastation of Baal, and they were also used to great effect during the Ullanor Crusade against the Orcs. And so those are the different types of dreadnought patterns of the Imperium. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this video. Do hit that like button for support and subscribe, but most of all smash that bell icon for regular updates on new videos on this channel. Take care, boys.